Consent. Okay, recording will start soon. Cool. Maybe it worked. We will see. We will see. Bum, 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 bum. Man, it's streaming. You can stream from here. That's really cool. Oh my gosh. Stream onto the internet. That's not what I want, though. Is that what I want? Hello, hello. You are back. So, what has been up with you lately? Oh, also, we're recording now. I push the buttons. I don't know if it shows you on your end or if it makes you does it make you consent on your end?
But it does show a little like red recording.
Okay, I guess it's
And
good
it
for me
says,
to
like,
know.
you've
Because
hit
on Zoom, it's like you have to push the okay button, where I was hoping it would do the same thing. So it's very informative. But okay, at least there's a red button, but we are recording. I mean, just like we did last time, I am very chill and casual, and I this doesn't have to be perfect. We don't have to do anything. If there's anything that either of us say or accidentally say that we're unhappy with, let me know and I'll edit that out. Otherwise, I don't really plan on editing anything because I have perfectionism issues, and if I tell myself I'm going to edit it, I won't do it because I'm I have to have the time to make it perfect, and I never have that. So I'm trying to let go of that and just raw podcast, whatever this is, let's do it. So yeah, that's where I'm at. Hope that's okay with you. If you have any feelings about that, let me know. As I said, absolutely let me know how you feel after. On my side of things, you can say whatever you want. You can swear. I don't give a shit. I don't know. I don't know if there's anything that is off limits for you, which I guess maybe I should have asked before recording, but yeah, that's it for me. Just a super chill time. We can take 10 minutes, we can take an hour, whatever you want to do.
Cool. That all sounds good to me. And I think, yeah, I feel like I always worry about the podcast folks and the ways in which perfectionism can show up in that space. And especially around, I don't know, in the work that I do at the National Eating Disorder Information Center, so much of it is with youth. And I feel like, especially this generation of young people, I feel like there's a reduction in spaces for them to just fuck up. And it's
Yeah.
okay to be wrong at that age. You're still learning, you're still forming, and I feel like they've maybe grown up in front of cameras and things living forever on the internet and screenshots
Mhm.
and audio recordings and voice memos, whereby if you do a misstep, that can be misconstrued against you. And while
Yes.
I want to really balance the fact that those tools I think have been really helpful for those who are marginalized, who now have ways to prove when someone has been discriminatory. So that's definitely still
Absolutely.
really important. And I think I think there should be a sacredness to have some spaces where people can just be wrong, have that figured out, and have harm addressed, and have people learn lessons from that and move forward. And I feel
Oh my gosh.
while podcasts are really awesome, audio information is awesome, yeah, I worry about the ways that that's still a really crafted message for an audience to hear, as opposed to just a in-person live raw
Mm.
conversation where people can kind of model communication, where sometimes when things go wrong, then we can apologize and say sorry.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, I think that is such a good point that I haven't really thought about is yeah, as you said, you with your work with youth and we are told to do things perfectly. We're told to do everything a certain way. And then when we have anxiety about it or it becomes a barrier in our lives, we're like, oh, don't worry, no one's perfect. Perfect doesn't exist. But then you're right, if a mistake is made or something isn't good, people are judged on it or that's held against them. But I also hear what you're saying in the same hand is cancel culture versus accountability culture. I was just having this conversation with my mom yesterday because she was worried about I do content creation and I like to be on I don't like to be on the internet. I like to share stories on the internet. And she was like, I'm so worried that if you say one wrong thing or someone interprets what you say wrong, and then you're done and everything you built is gone. Not that I've built anything, but, like, in the future. And I was like, "I hear you," and I, like, don't have that fear because I am very mindful about what I say, not in the sense of, like, "Oh, I will never fuck up, I'll never make a mistake," but in the sense of, like, I at least I try or have the intention to listen to people and not say something harmful, and that if I did accidentally say something harmful, or if I did say something that was misinformed, that I know that I want to take accountability for that, talk about it, address it, apologize, learn from it, and continue on. And so for me, like, it's like I feel like I should have a deep fear of, like, fucking up and, like, ruining everything, but, like, I th that's the thing for me. It's like, "Oh," everyone's like, "Oh, I hate cancel culture, cancel culture." I'm like, "Okay, yeah, or is someone just being canceled for making a mistake, or are they being held accountable for causing harm, for being ignorant?" Like,
Mhm,
maybe people are realizing, "Hey, you actually don't deserve this platform because,
mhm,
yeah, you're saying harmful things or ignorant things," and so and see, like, I have ADHD, and so my brain's very, like, black and white, which I really hate because logically I know there's so much nuance in the world, but my
mhm.
brain wants to put things in a box. So
Ooh,
it's like, "Oh, yeah, we're allowed to make mistakes, perfect doesn't exist," or it's like, "Well, still want things to be good, and we don't wanna cause harm, and we don't wanna fuck up, and we don't wanna make mistakes," and
mm,
I'm sure there's a
I
middle
know.
somewhere.
Yeah, I know. I feel like I talk to lots of adults too in the role that I have where I get to like provide educational information to like teachers on eating disorder prevention. So many of them come in and they're like, just like teach me what to say. Like what are the right things to say about food?
Mm,
What's the right language to use about bodies? Like I want to be as inclusive as possible. I don't want to fuck that up. And like I want to respect that intention. And I think like fundamentally like relationships are about trust building. And like what I don't know if it's a strong foundation of trust that there's this like we're walking this fine line that as soon as something crappy happens, it means that we're going to lose all that trust. I think if you end up building up trust, there's people will give you the benefit of the doubt. And as
mhm,
long as you can like repair accordingly, like what I hear and what you're sharing is like the ability to feel like you can own it, catch it, apologize, and move forward from that in a way that makes sense for you and whoever it is that this like rupture has happened with. I think like
mhm,
that's the skill that I talk about with teachers. Like it's less about how do I say the right thing and more how can I make sure that I apologize genuinely if I do hurt
yeah.
and
Yeah,
and if
like
I can model that, especially with youngins, like what a
mhm,
really cool thing for them to witness, like even an adult, someone who you respect or someone who's responsible for you, like in the way a teacher is, can like be wrong sometimes and can own it and correct themselves and move forward from it. Like to me, that's like
yeah,
what a trust building exercise as opposed to like everything being
yeah,
right. I think it's
and I
more.
think about, like, even in the position of, like, a teacher, there's, like, a power dynamic, right? So I'm like, for the teacher to, like, first, say, like, "Okay, I might not get this right," being open to feedback, but I also think about, like, creating an environment in which the students feel safe to give that feedback or to say, "Hey, that was harmful," or, "Hey, let's not say that anymore," right? Like, I think about all these things and how, yeah, there's so much, and I also feel weird defending, like, "Oh, I could be accountable and, not ruin my life," but not since I'm ruining my life, but, like, not causing harm or being that person, but I also, at the same time, wanna recognize, like, if I do something that is harmful or it shows, like, my internal biases or, like, my true values that doesn't align with someone else's, like, then that should be a thing, right? Like, blow up my yeah, like, maybe if it's like, yeah, you don't deserve a platform until you figure your shit out, or I don't know, like, maybe it's about being receptive to that too of, like, instead of like, "Oh, I'm so scared of saying something wrong," but it's like, "Okay, let's try our best to not cause harm, and if we do, be accountable, yeah, try to work on it," and
Mhm.
sometimes life has consequences, I guess. So, but no, it's really interesting about the youth you work with. I think about like perfectionism and journal. I guess that's very specific to like an online space, or as you're saying, like a teacher. But you're right. That trust that you build up hopefully isn't like blown away in a second. Or I guess in like this scenario of like a podcast or having a chat, it's like, okay, maybe I'll stumble on my words, or I won't say something super like eloquently, or I'll repeat myself, or, it's like, okay, how harmful are these things? It's just my own ego. It's not like I'm worried about ethically messing up, or I mean, always. I'm an
Yeah.
anxious person, but it's more like I don't wanna do things bad because then it shows that me, like, I as a person, am, like, not good enough, and I'm
Mm,
not, like, special enough, or what I'm producing isn't of
mhm,
value. Like, how many podcasts are there in the world? How many content creators are there in the world? Like,
mhm,
bajillions, and I think maybe we could both say, like, there's a lot of people who shouldn't have podcasts because they are actively causing harm, but it's like, how do we exist in these spaces? I think about, like, now I'm reflecting on, like, you and, like, your position. Is it about I think, like, I don't see that about you because I'm like, you help so many people. Like, that's just so validating. Like, you are influencing so many people, you help so many people that matters, whether there's 100 people doing that or one, like, and I mean, the more the merrier. Like, there shouldn't be a competitiveness in that, and maybe I need to kind of view this, like, advocacy work or whatever the same way as, like, okay, I might not be, like, the best at it or, like, I don't know.
mhm. The difference between like a process and an outcome, right? Like it's one
Mm,
thing to be like, are we producing whatever we're producing for the sake of needing an outcome? And whether that outcome is popularity or shares or validating comments or whatever. I
mhm,
feel like it's like natural that a lot of people potentially focus on that because I think in society, like under capitalism, we have been taught, and I feel like even folks thinking about college and university now, like it's like, what am I going to get from doing this sort of thing? Like, what direct outcome am I getting as a result of it? And I need to make sure that I do this so I can be productive in my life and get a job and make money so I can live. And so, as soon as we've attached like money to you need something else in order to live instead of just you exist, therefore you can live,
yeah,
I can see why maybe we're caught on outcomes and stuff like that. Even though I feel like, I don't know for you, but for me, I feel like the funnest time of like arts or like knowledge production is when I just get to care about the actual process of creating my art or doing the work itself. I feel like I'm lucky in the role that I have with NEDIC, where I get to lead community education initiatives, that like it is value aligned work. It's work that I know is extrinsically having an impact. And so intrinsically, it also feels like it aligns with my values. But I also realize that like I don't know how many people that I know who are in the position that I'm in that gets to have such clear alignment between both. I feel like so many
mhm.
of us are probably having to like compromise between certain things. And I think as long as like we live under a system whereby we have to link certain outcomes to living and having a house over our head and having food in our stomach and having like people not be harmful to us in the world. Like to me, it's no wonder why we're caught in that, and it's no wonder why, especially as we get potentially like more and more scarce as a planet, younger and younger people are like thinking more quickly about perfectionism and needing to be perfect in that way. Like to me, all those things are tied together.
Yes. Oh my gosh, everything you said, I'm just thinking, I'm like, I think it's also so amazing when you're talking about your work and how you can see the impact that you're having. It's like, does that feel like, is that the prize? Is that the outcome that could feel fulfilling instead of like, okay, it's a job, okay, it's, like sometimes I feel in advocacy work that it's nothing's ever enough. I'm not doing enough because I still see all these issues in the world. I'm still like, okay, we're screaming and nothing's happening. But if you're dealing directly with someone and maybe you can see their progress, or you can see the how they're learning and growing from it, does that give you kind of that? same satisfaction, or just like help like affirm like, yeah, this actually is meaningful. Like, maybe I'm not on like the world stage right now, but me
Mhm,
being here even with one person
mhm,
is making an impact.
mhm. It's a really interesting question that I'm going to answer in two ways. So, in one way, from a personal place, like I live with things. I don't necessarily know if it's depression. I don't necessarily know if it's bipolar. The like language, at least clinically, that I feel like I'm like most comfortable with is something called cyclothymia, which is known as like
Mm,
subclinical bipolar. Um, I don't know, those sorts of things like never like the labels and the words themselves never really meant that much to me. My day to day still feels very much okay, but one of the consequences of living with like my kind of internal rhythms being off is that I don't necessarily feel a strong sense of positive affect or positive emotion in my work itself.
mm,
And so, like, I don't get to feel in my body the work being impactful. So, I feel like I've had to use like my brain though, like logically, rationally, when I get to be with kids, when I get to see that kind of work, when I get to see a teacher like open their mind or change their perspective or whatever. I can definitely logically say that that's impactful. And I know like cognitively, I should feel happy at that. I don't
mhm,
get to feel it, but I can think that that's good. So in the way that I'll answer your question, I think like, yes, I think it's like being really cool and being really impactful. And I guess to me though, especially because I don't get to actually feel the feeling, I feel like my eyes have always been on the like bigger prize maybe of like trying to see that like we all have a role to play. And I think if we accept that the issues, many of the issues we face in the world are interconnected, while on one hand it's really natural for that to be like despair inducing when we see them all interconnected, because then it's like what do we do? I think like the antidote to that has to then be like that we all have a role to play. And I don't think like any of us should have to be a superhero. I like, don't think we should
mhm.
glamorize the like superhero culture that is like super common, especially in North America. I feel like instead, I think if we like all saw it, if we all took care of like our corner of the universe, like maybe things will be okay. Like I think it's like the janitors and the garbage workers and the like public transit operators. Like there are roles that we have in society that have kept society running. Farmers for food procurement, things like that, that are pretty unglamorous. But I feel like it's those roles to play. Like if we can all embody that spirit of being like, how do we take care of what we can take care of? If we all did that, I think we, the people, would be able to like overturn the rule of few that are potentially like from a power and economic struggle place as like determining a lot of our policies in the country. But I think it's like all of it's having to do stuff in community. So I think like the stuff that we do here, or like people listening to this conversation, or like getting a chance to volunteer or work with some of the organizations that we work with, like Frame or Medic or etc. Like I think some of the antidotes for despair is like even when then our energy level is low, and for me, like when I'm not feeling positive about the work that I'm doing, that when I'm getting to do it with other people and I get to see my co-facilitator smiling, or I get to see some of my volunteers smiling, like that will make me extra feel like okay, like we're doing something here, even if I might not feel it myself. And I think it's like the community part of that that's important.
Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. I love listening to you. I love speaking with you, and it's exactly this. I Oh my gosh. So I hope you don't mind. So my raging ADHD, sometimes I'm like, I can keep all these thoughts in my head and then they slip. So I was just making notes of the points that I wanted to touch on. So I don't mean to be rude if I'm looking to the side. Um, you talking about not being able to feel that positive affect. I resonate with that, and it sucks and it's not fair. And uh also, I've never heard of that clinical term you said, so thank you for that education on that, and
Cyclothymia, I like that's the word that I resonate with the most because if you like break down what the word means, like it's like how we all kind of know about like circadian rhythms. So like the thymic is the rhythm part, and the
Mm,
cyclo is like the cycle part. And to me, like I felt so much more like depathologized and like destigmatized when I just think about like so many parts of our life and our universe like operate in cycles. So it makes sense if I might
mm,
operate in cycles too. And like the moon does that, the moon phases, the ocean does that with like high tides and low tides. And maybe I'm just like the moon and the ocean. I'm maybe not like a mountain, or maybe not like something that just gets to exist and be there and like always kind of be there. Like maybe that's not me, but like forest, moon, ocean feels more like me, and that they're always kind of cycling through. And I think for me, that's kind of how I've like changed my narrative about that. So
mm,
that clinical term has actually helped. Whereas like bipolar or depression kind of felt like too inaccessible. Like it didn't really feel as up and down as the bipolar would feel. Like it didn't feel like I was like alternating between North Pole and South Pole, if I was kind of trying to put a metaphor to that. And I definitely didn't feel like fundamentally low all the time, because there definitely is a little bit of like energy and like hypomania, like this initial burst where I feel like, oh my God, I want to solve everything and do everything. And that
mm,
burst that's there. So I'm like, hey, that doesn't feel fully like the folks who I know who live with depression feel like. So
mm.
yeah, cyclothymia is how that came to be. And yeah, forest, moon, ocean definitely feels more like the metaphors that I like.
That is so beautiful that you are like the moon, you are like the ocean. I think that is such a beautiful, beautiful way to view it instead of like I kind of like deeply pathologize myself because I've always felt that, oh, things are wrong with me. I'm not good enough. So these are the reasons why I'm not good enough. It's not my fault. It's the ADHD, OCD, like I kind of I wear them as like a shield. But to be able to say, yeah, maybe I'm just like the moon. Maybe I'm just like the ocean. Like I think that's so beautiful because you wouldn't say like, "Oh, that mountain is more beautiful than the moon," right? Both beautiful, both magnificent, just different,
Mhm,
and that is something I wanna hold on to and carry with me, so thank you so much for that. I love that you have that for yourself, that you've accepted that for yourself, and you know your own rhythms and, um
And it's taken, for people listening, it's taken forever. Like I probably like lived like this like my whole life, like six, seven,
mhm,
8, like probably since 11 started to like mental health as a discourse was like starting to become more relevant for me in my life. But like it wasn't until maybe I was like, I'm 30, almost 31 now, and it's like not till maybe I was like 28 or like
mhm.
29 that like I started to kind of like feel this level of acceptance and stuff with that. So despite me being a therapist, despite me working in mental health promotion, despite all of that, like it didn't come personally until a lot later, even though I
Wow.
worked in the field for 10 years. So,
Right. And so I feel like that's also really encouraging of like, okay, things don't have to happen fast. We don't
mhm,
have to accept everything right away. We don't have to be okay with everything. And it could be a process of like getting there. And I'm the same way. I'm like, okay, I feel like I logically know this is good or I logically know something, but I don't feel it. And that's super frustrating. But I think, yeah, honoring that, like, okay, I don't feel the things as other people. And I don't know how to be okay with that yet. I wanna be happy. It'd be nice to, like, feel happy and calm and at peace, and I don't know if that's mm, I think I see it as, like, a destination instead of a journey, which I think is my first problem,
mhm,
is because I know there's not just gonna be a place where I'm like, "Everything's fine now." I worked through my issues, I worked through my whatevers, the barriers in my life, and now things are fine, and I'm allowed to be happy because I just from my track record of life, I don't think that's gonna happen. I've
mhm,
never arrived at a place where I'm like, "Now everything's fine." There's always been something or even just being in my own brain has been
mhm,
the thing. No matter where I go, there you are, has
mhm,
been my experience. Um,
mhm.
but I
There's a
also think
Canadian author, Johnny Sun, who wrote Goodbye Again. He's written some other books,
Mm,
but there's a metaphor that he uses in Goodbye Again where like he talks about emotions as like, think about them as like birds visiting your like windowsill.
mm,
And instead of thinking of like happiness as a destination, like maybe happiness is just something that like visits you on your window. and like you notice it and it's there, and maybe it's 15 seconds, or maybe that bird chills out for half an hour, or maybe that bird makes a little home and a little nest in your area for a bit longer. Like all we can kind of control though is like whether we have the window open to let it in or not. Like have we done that or have we not done that? And we can think about happiness like that, or sadness or grief or whatever. To me, like I can see like connections between that metaphor and like also the way like mindfulness thinks about emotions, but like them, for me at least, metaphors and narratives and stories have been easier as a way for me to process things. So I like his way of thinking about it that way, because yeah, I think we kind of live in this like bit of a paradox where like I think there are more and more people that know that things we have to focus on process and journeys and whatever. But I think it's like natural that so many, I think, still get caught in thinking about the destinations when like so much of capitalism will dictate that like we need to make sure we get X, Y, and Z, or else we can't live like a house and a job and a
Mhm.
sense of identity and a whatever. Like those all sound like finished products. And so like
Mhm.
I think it's no wonder that we're maybe caught in that in between sometimes.
That is such that is such a good point that they feel like finished products. But, like, okay, everything's always changing. You might find, yeah, your dream home, and then something happens, life happens, and you move, or, like, that's something I've experienced. I've seen family members going through that lately. I'm like, "Oh, okay, so when you think you've made it and things are fine, life's gonna be like, no, we're not done yet."
And like maybe that's another way to think about perfectionism, is like how I feel like an antidote to that is potentially like building the kind of like self trust that like regardless of whatever happens, I like believe in myself that I can handle that situation. So
Mhm,
that way, even if I'm not perfect, or even if I like this doesn't go the way that I want to, I still think I'll be okay. And I still think everything will be okay. And I still think I have support around me. And I've cultivated support around me, chosen if the folks assigned to us by the ways of us living weren't always the fit. Like that can maybe be a way to help when we're feeling like if we weren't perfect, things are gonna fall apart. Because I think that's
mhm,
often the like unfinished part of that sentence, right? Like if I'm not this, then that means this is gonna happen. And I think if we trust ourselves and believe in ourselves that things will still be okay, even if we don't clear the bar, then I think we start to change that a little bit. Because
mhm.
fundamentally, I don't think any of these things are like bad. Like, I don't think perfectionism is bad, but like, I wonder what the wisdom of what it's trying to tell us is instead, you know?
That's so good. I think that's something my own therapist had, like, tried to work on with me, and I've had such a resistance to, like, believing in myself or having compassion with myself, because it feels like, well, if I give myself compassion, then it means I'm gonna stop working hard. If I show myself compassion, it means I'm not actually going to get to the places I wanna get, or I don't
Mhm,
wanna say, like, accomplish things as if it's, like, yeah, a destination, but, like, build things in the world that I wanna build, or contribute to things I wanna contribute to if I'm
mhm,
compassionate with myself,
mhm. To me,
which
it's no
yeah.
surprise when like so much of, I feel like we have not seen softness as a good thing under a capitalism system. Like I think
Mhm,
people who are soft or expansive, whatever, are just like grounds for exploitation or like places to get taken advantage of. Like when I think about Indigenous peoples in Canada, like initially it was like an opening up of the land in their arms and like trying to potentially help and see what can go forward. And they were met with war and violence and servitude and forceful displacement and things like that, right? Like we
mhm,
haven't we haven't seen softness modeled as a good thing. So I think it's no wonder that sometimes compassion feels like, well, if that turns me soft, I need to be hard to face the hard life.
mm,
I don't know. I think like self compassion stuff, even though I know empirically it like works and resonates with a lot of people, maybe because of the way that like positive affect and me don't get along, hasn't resonated with me. But I've been able to like over time see a difference between like self-compassion and self-belief. So like
mm,
like if I keep finding myself in these situations, I've still been able to like I'm still here and I'm still being able to navigate that, and maybe that's still worth something. Maybe I can believe in myself that maybe my I just can navigate tough situations all the time. And like while I don't like that, and while I'm gonna try to not have that be my everyday, that's still something to believe in, that I have still made it through that for now. And like that can be a kind of form of self belief in a way that isn't explicitly compassionate, but I think self-compassionate folks would probably say that self-belief is still a part of self-compassion. And to me,
Right.
that's been a way that I've been open to some of that, even if some of the like extra mushy hasn't necessarily found a home in me yet.
I really like that. Like, okay, like we can work with how we feel still, because it feels like, okay, if I have these barriers, then I can never do it. Like if I don't like have extreme confidence, or I don't like have this high self-esteem, um, how am I gonna like how do you even start to build it up? It almost felt like I need to accomplish, I need to prove it to myself before I can believe in myself. But I it's like, okay, maybe I'm looking at the wrong things. It's not so much, oh, I have to accomplish these big fancy things in order to prove to myself or to others that I can do it. But yeah, think about the barriers we faced, how we're here. As you said, we're here right now. We made it. We're still going. We are learning how to cope. We're learning how we want to spend this time on earth. And yeah, believing, even if I, yeah, even if we have to go to like that logical point of like, okay, we made it. Logically, we can keep going.
Mhm.
And the belief that, yeah, I have the tools, I have the knowledge and the understanding, and I think I can adapt to varying situations. And
Mhm.
even if something happens, I believe that I can handle it.
Mhm. And I
Yeah.
have support networks for different things. Like I want everyone should have like a squad behind them, you know? Like I have a support network if I need logistical questions and help about life things. I have a support network for like my emotions. I have a support network for like going out or having fun. Like sometimes I have the same people for some of those things, but at least for me, I think a lot of them are pretty distinct. And all that matters, I think, to me for an individual person is like you feel like you have people you can go to, so that when your own like reserves are feeling pretty depleted and you are finding it hard to remind yourself about all that stuff about you, that's okay, that you have people around you in your corner who will do that with you, you know?
Yeah. How did you get to this point? How did you I mean, like, how did you, yeah, build yourself up or learn these tools? Was it through education? Was it through your own personal training? Or just your life experience and you being able to like, okay, I need to change the way I view things. I need to, what was it? Yeah, what do you think?
I don't know. I feel like my like legit answer to this is probably like living through trauma, which is not something that I want people to go through. So like so but I think yeah, like having to cope with lots of things at a really young age, I think like made me very like distrusting of the world. Uh,
Mm,
Pretty suspicious. I think I'm pretty guarded. I feel like I don't tell lots of people my personal life. I feel like I get to be the listener and I enjoy being the listener and stuff way more than the talker. Like it feels much more comfortable. It feels like also for myself from a protective place, I can just like assess and like see what's up and see what's going on and like read the vibes. Um, and I feel like over time, if anyone was able to make it through all of those defenses, then they're probably like really, really good for me. And so, like a few of those initial, like a lot of the friends that I have in my life, loved ones in my life, are like people that I've like known for like 10 plus years. I think I've like found it really hard as an adult to like recently let folks in because, and I feel like my solar system is pretty full. But um, yeah, like I don't think that is a something that I want everybody to do because I think that's like creating a support network out of a place of pain and struggle. And so, like, instead, like, a way in which, as adults, that I feel like I've been able to like let myself be open to more is to think about like what actually like feels good in my body. Like when I am hearing someone share or speak, or when I'm like reading a certain article or a certain person's story or reading a book or something like that, like I can like lean into the things that like grip me more. And like those ideas are like planting seeds in me on purpose. So like how can I go and find more of that? And I think it's only through like the absorption and through osmosis of some of those things that then I feel like I'm now able to like share it out loud. But it's kind of just been like learning to, even though my gut instincts have like formed through trauma, learning to not pathologize that and to just like trust that like that can be a superpower in its own way. And so let me just like use it in that way. Hasn't
Mhm.
really let me down. And so I will keep doing it that way.
Yeah,
For
I
people who
really
didn't have trauma, like I feel like maybe it's just like being able to be in tune with what your body is sharing. And it doesn't always have to be, I know for many neurodivergent folks, like in interoception, like being aware of cues in your body is something that's a struggle. Sometimes it doesn't always have to be, when I say in your body, it can mean literally in your body, or it can mean like as you as a being, when you have felt like things resonate with you. It's okay to seek out more of that. And if things didn't resonate with you, it's okay to just be like, cool, that works for you, happy that works for you, but I'm gonna keep searching, right? And keep
Mhm.
searching until you kind of find the options that end up like exposing yourself to opportunities so you find things that eventually work for you.
And along with that, so I like that, like, surrounding yourself with the people that feel good, that support you, that they believe in you. Something I read on the internet that I loved was just like, yeah, like surrounding yourself with people that are like that love you for who you are, or like want you to succeed. The people that are like hyping you up. And that's like really stuck with me. Like when I'm with different people, I'm like, does this person want me to or like be successful in like what I'm doing? Or do they support me, what I am doing, and believe in me as a person? And that's been huge. Or sometimes I'm like, oh no, like I like this person or their family, but they don't believe in me and they don't support what I'm doing and they don't um yeah, or like value me the way I want to be valued or the way I want to be seen. And so that's been huge. So like when I ask you or when I hear you, talk about that, I think, okay, does that also come with a lot of boundaries of like when you find like, oh, like this person or these people don't see me, or they are committed to misunderstanding me. They are committed to not accepting what they see in me. Is it like, okay, I need to distance myself also from those things? But how do you not be like in an echo chamber? I think my fear is like, oh yeah, if I like stay away from like criticism, then I'm just putting myself in an echo chamber, and maybe I'm not growing as well if I just think I'm really great and I'm wrapped up in my ego. But I definitely put myself in a lot of positions where I'm surrounded by people who don't see the value in me and don't um yeah, don't they might love me, right? I might be their family and they might love me, but yeah, they're not on my team, let's say.
Hmm. Yeah, I mean, I have lots of respect and have some friends too who like will intentionally sometimes seek out non-value aligned people because they want like direct exposure to like the real life
Mhm,
narratives of like how those people are, so that they like that's part of their like honing of themselves. And if
mm,
that's something that people want to do, I feel like that's an important skill. Like I think that's cool to be able to do that. And I think there's a difference between like, yeah, criticism from a place of like well-intentioned, wanting to help, wanting to like, build you up, and criticism from a place of tearing you down. And I think like learning to
mm,
differentiate between the two is important. It's kind of like, to me, I feel like I talk to lots of post-secondary students who like struggle with imposter syndrome, and people have probably heard of that term before. um, to me, I think like an antidote to imposter syndrome of feeling like you're like not enough or not good enough for XYZ is like shine theory. And so like shine theory is about like there's space for all of us to shine. And so like let's find You want people who will help you find places in the sky where you can shine, because there's billions of stars and they all have found a place to shine. So how come we can't do that for us as humans? Like, I don't think we have to be as like competitive or tearing down or zero sum in which the ways in which like the world has operated thus far. I think there are many communities that are a bit more like the values are focused on like community building and shining, and everyone has a role to play, and everyone finding their role and being able to like feel good about that. There's space for all of that. I think those folks will still give you criticism in the means of wanting to just help redirect your energy somewhere else in the sky, or like put you into the solar systems that you feel like you like then will find like you're shining the brightest, as opposed to
Mhm.
trying to like dull your light. I don't know if we need to be in places to receive criticism to dull our light, because then is that criticism really effective, or is it just turning you off? Like, I don't know if we want to be turned off.
Yeah, that I think is such a good and important, like, distinction between criticism, because we think criticism's so bad, but, like, if someone is, yeah, value aligned, like you said, they're on your team, they want to see you, succeed, or they want to see you shine, and there could be criticism or critique or in a helpful, productive manner versus you're right, the criticism that's dulling your shine, that's putting you down, that's making you, like, not believe in yourself or feel worse about yourself. Okay, you're right, like, that's how could that be positive? How could that be contributing to who you are?
And just because there
Mhm,
are things that grow in really like porous conditions, like there are things that grow in the bottom of the ocean, there are plants that grow in freezing temperatures, etc. Like, doesn't mean you have to be that. And I feel like we maybe internalized that like I understand and respect everyone's want to grow. I don't want to ever dull that growth. But like sometimes like there are plants that make sure that they grow only after you've snipped off the leaves that are like causing them issues or whatever, right? Like
mhm,
I think it's the people who want us to shine will help us like trim those leaves of those criticisms that are probably still well intended in the form of helping us grow, as opposed to just like dragging us to compete in in the bottom of the ocean for very limited resources where like 90% of things would die instead. I don't But we hold up those ones that do. Like, I think great for those that do, but doesn't mean you have to.
oh my gosh. Oh my I'm just trying to, like, absorb all of these little bits and just let them sink in, and even as you're talking about, there's room for everyone to shine. There's, mm, gajillions, that's a word, of stars, and there's space for them all. It brought me back to what you said about, like, this North American culture of, like, the superhero, and, like, there's only one person who has to do it all or accomplish everything, and if everyone was a superhero, then it would be mundane, I guess. So, mm, is there a
Mhm,
way in your mind to, like, counteract that? Or, like, I very much resonate with that. I feel like, especially being, like, a content creator, it's very, like, visible to me. I'm like, "Look at these people succeeding. I'm not there." Or even in mental health advocacy, which feels like a really horrible thing of, like, comparison, because of course we want to all work together to build a better system, and I think I have that fear of, like, if I don't succeed in this space or if I'm not visible in the space, then my life isn't worth anything, or I'm not who am I? What am I? Kind of like an identity thing,
mhm,
but, hmm, how can we work together and not let our egos, like, get in the way of that? Hmm,
mhm,
I'm just thinking so hard about all of it, like, we don't have to be the superhero,
mhm, mhm,
and I feel like I think I do, like, especially in mental health, I struggled so hard for so long, like, trying to access resources, anything. I'm like, "Okay, I need to fix this, I need to fix the system, the government's not doing it, like, things are taking too long,
mhm,
organizations have to go through so much red tape. I just need to go out and fix it." And I was, like, dead set on that since, like, 2020, I was like, I just have to go out and fix it. I'm gonna build this platform. It's gonna connect people to all the services. I'm gonna build this thing. And then when it's hard or it doesn't happen or I hit roadblock after roadblock after roadblock,
Mhm.
I'm like, okay, maybe one person can't just like fix everything, which is frustrating to me because I'm
And
like, well,
isn't a slight on you as a person. Like, it doesn't mean that, like, you didn't have enough, so you failed. It just meant, like, the problems that we face are collective problems, not individual problems, which is why, like, these systems have all intersected. Like, it's natural and it's okay that you weren't able to, in quotes, like, do that. I think I'd rather, like, hope that there's things you learn from that process that, like, help you feel like, where did you feel like you were in spaces that were energy giving? Like, what parts of those tasks that you exposed yourself to with lots of bravery and lots of vulnerability that you felt like you actually liked, and what parts of that didn't you like? So, like, did you like the connecting with others, partnershipy part of that, or like, did you like the organizing part of that, or did you like the, like, being parts of meetings and organizing stakeholder hunt, whatever, right? Like, what
mhm.
kinds of collections of tasks
My
there?
gosh. Nah, you can't do that. We're having a meeting. This is my dog, Luna.
I don't know.
Stop.
I appreciate your moon-based name.
What?
I
Sorry.
appreciate Luna's moon name.
Yeah, it's your moon name. You're Luna like the moon. Hey, okay, get out. I'm so sorry. Luna, be free. Not over here. Oh my gosh, so sorry.
Yeah,
But I
okay. It's like, yeah, I don't know. I think it's kind of cool and full of bravery that you expose yourself to that, and I hope that there's things there that you've learned that you would want to continue with.
that's
Like,
huge.
those are your pieces that maybe are for you, and then I think the rest of it can follow, like, the Toni Morrison quote that if, like, once we're free, like, once we feel like we found maybe our niche or our superpower, then, like, our job is to then help other people be free. And so then how can we just create space for others to do that, and then they can play their role, because I think we need all of our superpowers. I don't think we need just one superhero, and I don't think we have to have a superhero ranking.
Oh my gosh, I appreciate so much your insight to so many of these things. Like I feel like I have blinders on in my life and like I can't see outside of it. So being able to speak to you, I'm like, oh, I'm able to see something I've never been able to see before. And I'm so grateful for that. And I also want to be so mindful of your capacity and your I don't know, like, you're giving so much. You know, I like you're just giving. I'm sure this is just a tidbit of what you're giving me is what you give to others in the world. And do you feel like depleted even like speaking now? Like how's your energy levels? Is it like I don't want this just to be like free labor for you by any means. I really want to respect how you're feeling right now as well.
Yeah, I appreciate that, and I feel like it's like when folks like you are aware of that, that's like a form of the, like, trust and relationship building that, like, then means that I don't have to be worried about that on behalf of you or whatever, right? Like, yeah, I think if we can get to a place where we can all, like, trust ourselves to be able to communicate when we aren't feeling okay or when we do need to reschedule, like we did once. Like, those
Mhm.
are all things that I want us all to feel comfortable communicating, and, like, I think it's disclosures like what you just did that, like, help create the conditions for people to be able to share if they hadn't ever felt
Right.
like there's lots of spaces where maybe people feel like they can't speak up about those sorts of things, right? So no, yeah, I definitely don't feel like it's free labor. I'm happy to have a chance to chat. Like, we connected, like, well, I think, at the frame stuff that we had a chance to do, and I know that there's lots of intersections in the, like, collective work that we're wanting to contribute to. So no, I'm happy that we had a chance to have this combo. I Were there anything else in your notes there that you felt like we didn't get to pick up?
No, 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 no. Honestly, I wrote down Johnny's son. I wrote down like some things. I'm like, but No, and I appreciate that. I appreciate your reflections and that, yeah, you do have these boundaries for yourself and like, acknowledging that. And as you talk about like these trusting relationships that, I can trust you to speak up, if you need something and you can trust me that I'll respect it or and I can handle that. I found that's a thing when I speak with people, or like when you work with anyone like in their field and it's like, I don't want to cross that boundary because you deserve, so much respect and compensation and everything for your knowledge, your time, your labor. As soon as I have money, I will give it to you. I would love to pay you to have you on or to be able to form compensation and because that is absolutely what you deserve and I just appreciate your time so much and I don't want to take your day away from you. I can't believe we've already hit like an hour. But is there anything, that either I didn't circle back to or anything else that's kind of on your mind, on your heart that you wanna get out into the world and the 3 people who will listen to this?
I want to thank the three people who are listening to it, and thank you for like creating the space for us to have the convo, and for following up and for initiating. Like I think, uh, I don't know, like without opportunities like that, I feel like then things would just stay inside, which is okay for some things. But if there are ideas that can help sprout seeds in other people, I think it's cool to let them have a chance to do that. So yeah, I appreciate the convo. I appreciate your openness. I appreciate your listening despite us being tired. And yeah, happy that this can go out into the world.
Oh, I want everyone to hear you. I want everyone to listen to you because I think you have not I think, I know you have so much valuable insight and knowledge and yeah, I your voice deserves to go so far, and I know you'll help so many people already and in the future, and I'm very grateful to be connected with you, and I hope that there's future opportunities for us to either work together, hang out, just bump into each other sometime in the future because, um, yeah, I definitely see you as someone that's good in not just in my life, but, like a very yeah affirming person value aligned and I think that's a big thing in my life I need to start like really working on is like okay who am I actually surrounding myself with physically virtually
Mhm, and
I
it
think that
doesn't
has a
have to
bigger
be
impact.
binary, like, I
Mhm.
like using the solar system analogy, because in the ways of caring about space, like, you know that there are bits of the solar system that, like, if you're the sun, like, I want you to be picky about, like, your Mercury and Venus and Earth and Mars, like, the things that rotate around you pretty regularly, and, like, then we have an asteroid belt, and then we have like Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus, Neptune, Pluto, right? Like those planets rotate around less frequently, but they still rotate around us. And we've got some defenses in the asteroid belt. And then there's people who are whole other solar systems who like aren't rotating around us, but they still exist. They're still universe neighbors. So we maybe still have to interact as we're like spinning around each other a little bit, but we're not caught in each other's orbit. That now takes a binary classification of you're either in my circle or out my circle to be like you're a Mercury, Venus, Earth, Mars. You're an asteroid. You're a Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus, Neptune, Pluto, or you're Andromeda, or you're in a whole nother star system. And I don't want to even maybe we saw each other by accident, and that's fine, whatever, right? Like, but now we have a bunch of different ways to classify. And I think like getting to broaden that from being binary is a way that I think kind of still work within the ADHD brain of like wanting to categorize, but not having it be +1 or -1. And
Oh my gosh
that's
thank
something.
you for giving me that as well because you're right immediately I'm like in out.
You're either with me or against me. And I think like that's how I don't know. I think it's a like pretty like war focused, like colonial imperial way of thinking. So again, that's how we were many of us are probably taught. Like I don't blame any of us for thinking that way. But has what has it served? And if you feel like it hasn't served you as well as you want it to, then I think it's okay to change that. At least for me, it's been like broadening those things. I still kind of want my asteroid belt to be around me and protected. Like I think am pretty skeptical of most people in the world,
Mm,
but I can still let some people in. I can still let some people rotate around me okay-ish amounts, and then I can still be friends with the neighbors in my universe, even if they're not rotating around me. So
that's awesome. That's a beautiful, beautiful way of looking at all these different relationships and then relation to yourself. And oh, I'm just gonna like let it all absorb and think about it. And again, I appreciate you so, so much. Thank you so much for having a conversation with me. Um, yeah, I'm gonna stop the recording real quick before I cancel because I'm like, I don't want to lose a second of this stuff. Not a second. Not a second.